The cameras flashed. The crowd froze. NDA agreements were signed, and cell phones were locked away in these secure pouches. I mean, a $673,000 fortress of absolute secrecy was built to protect Hollywood's favorite couple. And just like that, with one accidental throwaway comment on a crowded red carpet, the entire secret was out.
Oh, yeah. Completely out.
Welcome to StarScope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And the topic on the table today is it's fascinating and honestly pretty intense. We are looking at the boundary-setting aftermath following the leak of Zendaya and Tom Holland's secret wedding.
Such a wild story.
Right. So we've got a stack of current celebrity news reports, but we're combining them with something that provides this really crucial context. It's a brilliant legal review from the New York Law School detailing the historic privacy battles of Princess Caroline and Naomi Campbell.
Wow, okay. Going back into the archives.
Exactly, because the mission of this deep dive is to explore exactly how modern megastars control their image and to really unpack the dramatic, grueling legal history that, paved the way for the celebrity privacy rights we see today.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Zendaya and Tom Holland really just pulled off the ultimate covert operation, only to have their most trusted confidant completely dismantle it by mistake.
It really highlights the ultimate paradox of modern fame, doesn't it? A public figure can control their physical environment with money and contracts, but controlling human nature and just the casual slip of a tongue is nearly impossible.
Yeah, let's set the scene so you, the listener, can really grasp the scale of this. Tom and Zendaya get engaged in late 2024. They decide to plan this highly secretive winter wedding for August 4, 2026.
Right.
And it's at the incredibly luxurious Beaverbrook Hotel in Surrey, England. The estimated cost for this event is a cool $673,000. And they did not mess around with security. We are talking about strict non-disclosure agreements for every single person on the property.
Which is standard for them, but still intense.
It's very, and an absolute ironclad no-phone rule.
Which, enforcing a true no-fan rule at that scale is practically an anomaly in today's culture.
Oh, absolutely.
We live in an era where every single guest, from a +1 to a caterer, is a potential paparazzo carrying a 4K camera in their pocket,
Yeah, everyone's a reporter now.
Right. So to pull that off requires immense discipline. You need physical security measures like those magnetic locking pouches, and above all, deep interpersonal trust. It signals this overwhelming desire to keep their private sphere completely untainted by public consumption.
They basically built an invisible wall around this event. And against all odds, it actually worked. The winter wedding stayed completely hidden for months. Zendaya was literally walking around highly photographed public events like the Louis Vuitton show at Paris Fashion Week, wearing a white dress and a gold wedding band on her left hand.
She really was.
The clues were everywhere. But because there was no leak, nobody officially put the pieces together.
Hiding in plain sight is often the most effective camouflage. By not acting like they were hiding a secret, they completely disarmed the public suspicion.
Right up until March 1st, 2026 at the SAG Awards in Los Angeles.
Oh, man. The red carpet.
Yeah. Zendaya's longtime stylist, her creative partner, one of her closest friends, Law Roach, is on the red carpet doing a standard interview with Access Hollywood. The reporter asks this speculative question, and Law he accidentally slips up. He laughs and says, "The wedding already happened. You missed it."
A single, off-the-cuff sentence that instantly shatters months of meticulous, highly expensive planning.
Which brings me to something I really struggle to understand here. I had to push back a little on how this was handled by them.
Okay, let's hear it.
Why didn't they just fire Law Roach?
Wow. Just cut him loose.
If you go through the trouble of spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on security and you draw up NDAs for your guests, what is the point if your inner circle blows it? It's like sealing up a highly pressurized submarine to survive the deep ocean, but your best friend decides to open a porthole from the inside to get some fresh air.
That is a vivid image.
But the breach ruins the entire system. How do you come back from a betrayal of trust like that, even an accidental one?
Well, that submarine analogy is perfect, actually, because it gets to the core of the damage. A breach from the inside is always the most destructive. But, firing him would have been a purely emotional reaction, not a strategic one.
You think so?
Yeah, the reports indicate that Tom and Zendaya took a much more mature, albeit rigid, approach. They recognized that Law wasn't acting out of malice, right? He wasn't trying to sell a story to a tabloid. He just fumbled in a really high-pressure media environment.
True, those red carpets are chaotic.
Exactly. So instead of cutting him out and creating even more drama, they managed the breach. They set new, impenetrable boundaries. They effectively censored him from ever discussing their private life again.
So they kept the friendship, but, revoked his clearance to the private data?
Precisely. And Law himself has clearly respected this new boundary. I mean, when reporters pressed him about her wedding dress weeks later, he completely deflected. He just vaguely stated it was better than the AI.
Which is such a good line.
Right. Tom and Zendaya realized that going on a firing spree or filing a lawsuit against a friend, well, that just creates a public spectacle, which is the exact opposite of privacy. By handling it internally, they fiercely protect the parts of their lives they can control, while accepting that the outside world is, well, it's always going to be chaotic.
And the outside world definitely brought the chaos.
Ja!
Because the internet didn't just react to the news, it literally exploded with AI-generated misinformation.
Oh, the Lake Como photos.
Yes. 10 million people on Instagram liked a series of AI-generated photos depicting a fake, lavish wedding in Lake Como, Italy. 10 million people thought a computer hallucination was reality. Zendaya actually had to go on Jimmy Kimmel Live and explicitly tell the audience, babe, they're AI. They're not real.
The introduction of generative AI into celebrity news is a terrifying new variable. It takes the burden of proof away from reality.
It really does.
The public is so hungry for visual confirmation of this couple's life that they collectively just accepted a synthetic image rather than wait for the truth.
It got so out of hand that in June 2026, Tom Holland officially confirmed the marriage during a cover story with Esquire, seemingly just to put an end to the digital circus.
I had to step in.
He joked that his grandmother was briefly offended by the fake AI photos because she thought she wasn't invited. But his immediate family ultimately wasn't fooled because, as he put it, they were all there.
He used that Esquire interview masterfully. I mean, he confirmed the foundational fact, yes, we are married, but then he immediately rebuilt the wall. He stated, that's all you'll get on that.
Very firm.
Yeah, he offered a small concession to the public by calling Zendaya his best friend, noting they share a life only they can truly understand and expressing how supported he feels. But by offering a controlled narrative, he starved the AI rumors of oxygen without actually giving up any real details of the wedding itself.
It's an incredibly calculated modern PR strategy.
Yeah.
Especially considering they have massive collaborative projects on the horizon, like Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey and Spider-Man, Brand New Day. They need the press, but they refuse to feed it their personal lives.
Which is a tough balance to strike.
It makes you realize just how sophisticated celebrity image control has become. But, the reason they rely on these extreme private contracts and strict access controls is because relying on the actual legal system to protect your privacy is an absolute nightmare.
Oh, 100%. The proactive control Tom and Zendaya wield today is a modern luxury. It is a system built directly on the backs of brutal, years-long legal battles fought by celebrities who are forced to drag the paparazzi through the highest courts in Europe just to establish baseline human rights.
Which takes us away from Hollywood in 2026 and drops us straight into Monaco and Germany in the 1990s. But wait till you hear what came next, because what happens when NDAs aren't enough and a star has to fight the paparazzi at those highest courts? If you're loving these Hollywood twists, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead in this deep dive.
We really do. Let's look at a real-life princess who had to fight an international legal war just to eat at a restaurant in peace.
Princess Caroline.
Yes, the New York Law School Review provides incredible historical context here regarding Princess Caroline of Monaco. Throughout the 90s, she was just relentlessly hounded by the German tabloids. And to be clear, they were not photographing her at official royal galas or state dinners.
Right, they were hunting her.
Exactly, hunting her during her daily life, taking photos of her dining out, shopping for groceries, riding a horse, or just tripping over a towel at a beach club.
So she sues 3 German magazines to stop them from republishing these deeply intrusive photos. And the German courts essentially look at her and say, too bad. They applied this incredibly specific legal label to her, calling her a figure of contemporary society par excellence.
Which is such a wild legal term. Under the German Copyright Act at the time, the press was legally permitted to publish photos of individuals without their permission if they fit that description.
Just because she's famous.
Right. The German courts argued that because of her immense fame, her right to privacy basically evaporated the moment she stepped out her front door. Unless she was physically hiding in a strictly secluded place, completely blocked from the public eye, her image belonged to the public.
I read the background on where this specific German law came from, and it absolutely blew my mind. It wasn't written for celebrities at all.
No, not at all. The origin is truly a bizarre piece of history. The framework for this law traces back to a massive scandal in 1889 involving Otto von Bismarck, the first chancellor of the German Empire.
1889.
Yeah. Two photographers bribed their way into his estate and took flash photographs of Bismarck lying on his deathbed.
They literally sneaked in to photograph a dying statesman. That is incredibly grim.
The public outrage over that grotesque intrusion sparked a politico-legal debate in Germany about balancing a person's dignity and personality rights against the community's interest in historical events.
Which makes sense for a chancellor.
Exactly. The resulting laws were meant to protect privacy, but left a massive loophole for reporting on figures of contemporary history. Fast forward a century, and tabloids were exploiting that loophole, which, again, was designed for historical statesmen to justify taking long-lens photos of a princess on her vacation.
So Princess Caroline loses in the German courts.
Yeah.
But she refuses to accept that her life is just public property. She escalates the case all the way to the European Court of Human Rights. And this brings up a philosophical question that I want to throw at you, and really anyone listening who follows the royal families.
Okay, lay it on me.
If you are born into royalty, if your wealth and your title are publicly endowed by the state, do you automatically owe the public access to your life? Where do we draw the line between a democratically elected politician and a princess?
You know, what's fascinating here is that the European Court of Human Rights had to answer that exact question in their landmark 2004 ruling, von Hanover v. Germany. They were tasked with weighing two massive conflicting articles of the European Convention on Human Rights.
Right.
On one side, you have Article 8, which guarantees the right to respect for private and family life. On the other side, you've got Article 10, which guarantees freedom of expression and the freedom of the press.
It's the ultimate legal heavyweight bout, privacy versus the press.
And the court resolved it by focusing on the function of the press, rather than just the fame of the person. The ECHR made a vital distinction. Politicians and heads of state require ultimate transparency because they exercise official state functions.
Sure, we need to know what they're doing.
Exactly. The public has a democratic right to be informed about them so they can vote and hold power accountable. But Princess Caroline did not hold a political office. She did not make laws. She merely represented her family at charity and cultural events. Therefore, the court ruled she possessed a legitimate expectation of privacy in her daily life.
So taking photos of her buying groceries does absolutely nothing to serve the democratic process.
Exactly. The court introduced a brilliant new test for the tabloids. They asked, does the published material contribute to a general public debate? Photos that merely satisfy public curiosity about a private individual's daily life do not contribute to a debate.
They're just gossip.
Right. Supplying the public with idle gossip is not a strong enough reason to override basic human dignity. The ECHR stated firmly that freedom of expression does not mean readers are entitled to know everything about public figures.
That completely flips the script. The burden is no longer on the princess to prove she was hiding behind a high wall in a secluded courtyard. The burden is now entirely on the press to prove that snapping a photo of her eating a salad somehow contributes to a meaningful political or societal debate.
It was a monumental victory that sent shockwaves through European media. The court recognized that continuous harassment by photographers induces a strong sense of intrusion and persecution, which violates a person's fundamental autonomy. It established that just because you are famous, you don't lose your human rights when you walk down the street.
Which brings us to another massive legal shift. Because while Princess Caroline was fighting to keep the paparazzi away from her beach towel, someone else was fighting a much messier battle about what happens when the press exposes your darkest personal struggles.
Yes. Later in the deep dive, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming, how a supermodel's public lie actually changed the legal definition of privacy forever.
And that supermodel is Naomi Campbell. In 2001, the Daily Mirror, a massive British tabloid, published an explosive story with the headline, "Naomi, I am a drug addict.
And they backed it up with devastating proof. They had secretly taken photographs of her wearing a baseball cap and jeans, quietly leaving a Narcotics Anonymous meeting in London. They went further and published highly specific details about her therapy and her group sessions.
Campbell sued the publication for damages, citing a breach of confidence. But this legal battle went back and forth through the UK legal system for years because of one incredibly messy, complicating factor.
The lie.
Right. Naomi Campbell had previously and very publicly lied to the media. She had gone on record claiming that, unlike other supermodels of her era, she did not use drugs.
Which makes things very complicated legally.
Here's where I have to play devil's advocate for the press, though. If a celebrity intentionally lies to the public about a core aspect of their brand, isn't it the media's literal job to expose that lie and correct the record?
The newspaper's lawyers argued exactly that point. They claimed that by lying publicly, she had forfeited her right to keep her addiction private. And initially, the legal system was totally torn.
It's a tough call.
It really is. The trial judge awarded Campbell modest damages, but then the Court of Appeal overturned that decision, agreeing with the newspaper that the press was totally justified in exposing the truth. The battle dragged on until 2004 when it finally reached the House of Lords, which was the highest court in the UK at the time.
And the ruling was an absolute nail-biter. A super tight 3-2 split decision.
And the House of Lords actually agreed with your premise regarding the lie. They ruled that because she had publicly misled the public, the press was absolutely justified in correcting the record. They had the legal right to publish the foundational fact that she was a drug addict and that she was seeking treatment.
Okay, wait, so the press wins the right to expose the lie, but they still lost the case. How does that work?
Well, because the House of Lords drew a brilliant line at the method of exposure. The court ruled that while publishing the fact of her addiction was justified, publishing the associated facts, the specific details of her NA treatment, the visual images of her leaving the meeting, that was a massive step too far.
Ah, I see. So you can say she lied, she's getting help. But you cannot say she goes to this specific clinic on this specific street at this specific time, and here's photographic evidence of her at rock bottom.
Exactly that distinction. Lord Hoffman, one of the presiding judges, pointed out that attending Narcotics Anonymous carries an essential life-saving expectation of privacy. The therapy itself is put at risk by disclosure.
Because if people know cameras are waiting, they won't go get help.
Exactly. So to decide what was off limits, the court created a new legal threshold. They asked, was the disclosure highly offensive to a reasonable person of ordinary sensibilities? They decided that exposing the intimate clinical details of someone's medical treatment easily passed that test for being highly offensive, regardless of her prior lie.
It is such a nuanced ruling, but the mechanics behind it are what I find so fascinating. It fundamentally changed UK law, and it's something that actually impacts everyone listening right now, not just supermodels.
The shift in legal mechanics is the true legacy of the Naomi Campbell case. Before this ruling, the concept of breach of confidence in the UK usually required some pre-existing trusted relationship.
Like an NDA.
Right. Or for example, if your doctor leaked your medical records or your employees stole trade secrets, you could sue them because they broke a specific bond of trust. But Naomi Campbell didn't have a relationship with the paparazzi hiding across the street.
The photographer was a total stranger.
So the House of Lords did something revolutionary. They shifted the legal focus away from the relationship between the people and placed it entirely onto the information itself. They ruled that if the information is inherently private, like medical treatment, sexual history, or deep personal trauma, a duty of confidence automatically arises, even if a total stranger acquires it.
Think about what this means for you, the listener, in the digital age. This is the legal precedent that makes things like revenge porn or the hacking and leaking of private iCloud photos legally actionable. The courts decided that certain information is fundamentally radioactive. It doesn't matter how you got it. You cannot publish it without violating human autonomy.
It was a massive leap forward in protecting human dignity against the invasive capabilities of modern technology.
When you pull all of this together, the evolution is staggering. In the early 2000s, you have Princess Caroline and Naomi Campbell fighting these agonizing, emotionally draining legal battles that took years just to establish the most basic fundamental rights, just to get the courts to say, you can't photograph my medical treatment and you can't stalk me while I buy groceries.
They were the pioneers, but they were forced to rely on reactive lawsuits. By the time they got to court, the harm was already done. The photos were printed, the secrets were out. They were fighting for financial compensation and future injunctions, but they couldn't unring the bell.
And then you fast forward 20 years to today, to 2026, with stars like Tom Holland and Zendaya, they have clearly studied that history.
Oh, absolutely.
They know that once a photo's out there, especially in the era of social media and immediate viral distribution, you can never, ever get it back. So they don't even bother relying on the courts to protect them after the fact.
They bypass the judicial system entirely through private, ironclad contracts, NDAs, strict physical entry rules, locking up cell phones. And when their own inner circle breaches that boundary, like the accidental leak at the SAG Awards, they employ access control.
Right, they censor the friend.
They manage the relationships and censor the flow of information at the source, rather than filing a lawsuit that would just generate a dozen more headlines. It is a highly evolved, deeply protective defense mechanism.
It's the ultimate evolution of celebrity control. We went from fighting tabloids in the highest courts of Europe to quietly managing NDAs at a luxury estate in Surrey. And frankly, with the rise of artificial intelligence, these public figures are going to need those defensive walls more than ever. Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next in our future deep dives. Which brings us to the end of our deep dive today.
But before we go, I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over. We talked about how 10 million people were successfully fooled by AI-generated photos of a fake Lake Como wedding for Zendaya and Tom. If the technology is already that convincing, and the public is that eager to consume it, well, how long until celebrities start intentionally weaponizing it?
Oh, wow. Wait, really?
Yeah, think about it. How long until high-powered publicists start intentionally leaking their own AI-generated fake events to act as decoys, sending the paparazzi and the internet on wild goose chases, ensuring their real private moments stay entirely off the grid?
A digital decoy to protect a physical reality.
That is wild.
Well, you've been listening to StarScope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.